Hey guys, welcome back. We are now on chapter 19 of The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin, and it's getting good. This chapter is titled Odd Relatives, and so I want to know what you guys are thinking so far. Who do you guys think is the bomber? Do you guys think it's Angela, or do you think it's someone else? I mean, 3 bombs did go off. Were they all done by the same person? Or were they done by different people? Who's the thief? Who's been stealing things? We know who the bookie is. What about the mistake? Who do you think the mistake is? Well, let's hope we find out in the next few chapters. Thursday was a sunny day, a glorious day. The autumn air was crisp and clear. None of the heirs noticed. WPP crossed the tape at $44, $44.50, $46 a share. Oh my! Don't sell until I give the words, Baba, Alice Turtle had said. Baba. The dressmaker smiled at her new name and eased back in the chair, but not for long. WPP 48 1/4. Oh my! Flora Baumbach bit her thumbnail to the quick. If only the child was here. The child was being examined by the school nurse, having been caught again with the radio plugged in her ear. Turtle blamed her misbehavior on toothache. The only thing that soothes the horrendous pain is listening to music. You should see a dentist, the nurse said. I have an appointment next week, Turtle lied. Can I go home now? The pain is truly unbearable. No. The nurse packed the tooth with foul-tasting cotton and sent her back to class. So every half hour, Turtle had to ask permission to go to the laboratory in order to keep up with the latest stock market reports. Bladder infection, she explained. Crow polished Mrs. Wexler's silver pot with a Westing disposable diaper for the 3rd time. 2 more days, the day after next. It was too painful going back to that house, but Otis said she must, to collect her due. It was her penance to go back, not her due. Blessed is he who expects nothing. Boom! Just a warning to keep doors locked, the delivery boy said, dumping a carton of Westing paper products on the kitchen floor. You know, Crow, old pal, I think I figured out who the bomber is. Crow stiffened as she stared at the distorted reflection in the shining silver. Who? That's right, Otis Amber said. James Chin, who? He wanted to put the coffee shop out of business, right? And then he had to bomb his own restaurant so nobody would suspect him, right? And he catered the Wexler party. Nobody would notice if the caterer brought in an extra box along with the food, right? James Shin Hu was the bomber. Crow's hands trembled, her face blotched with hate. That beautiful, innocent angel reborn. Sandy said her face will be scarred for life. James Shin Hu, beware. Vengeance will be mine. The judge rearranged her docket in order to have these last days free. Leave it to Sam Westing to interfere with her work. Sandy turned to his next entry. It's an interesting one. Crow. Birth, Erica Crow. Age, 57. Mother died at childbirth, raised by father, deceased. Education, 1 year of high school. Married at 16, divorced at 40. Ex-husband's name, Wendy Windklopple. Hospital records, problems related to chronic alcoholism. Police record, 3 arrests for vagrancy. Gave up drinking when she took up religion. Started the Good Salvation Soup Kitchen on Skid Row. Works as cleaning woman in Sunset Towers. Lives in maid's apartment on 4th floor. Westing connection? Question mark. Yes, it is interesting, Judge Ford replied, but it hardly tells us what we want to know. You've got a customer. Jake Wexler pointed a spare rib at the black-clad figure standing at the restaurant door. Must be a bill collector, Hu said, frowning over his account book. Grace looked up, saw it was only the cleaning woman, and returned to the sports photographs she was sorting. A dozen or more superstars would be framed and hung on one wall of Who's On First. Come on over and join us, Jake shouted. Limping to the table, Crow heard Mrs. Wexler click her tongue. Sinful woman, she'll go to hell with her pride and her covetousness. And that one, the fat one, the glutton, the bomber, the mutilator of innocent children. Maybe she is a customer, Hu thought, recognizing the face clenched in righteous anger as that of a diner not being served fast enough. He rose and pulled out a chair for Crow. My wife will be serving a Chinese tea lunch shortly. Madame Hu placed a variety of dumplings on the table, giggled at Jake, and ran back to the kitchen. That tittering Madame Hu was a beautiful woman, and quite young. Grace, casting a suspicious eye on her husband, was suddenly seized by a surge of gnawing jealousy. Maybe it was just the fried dumpling. Madame Hu returned to pour the tea. Jake patted her hand. Good. Grace noticed. She's clutching her stomach. About time she felt jealous. The podiatrist turned his smile to Crow. Nothing wrong with your appetite, I'm happy to see. Nothing is wrong with my mouth, the cleaning woman replied, looking down at her plate. It's my feet that hurt. That corn you cut out didn't heal yet, and I got a callus on the sole of my left foot, and my ingrown toenail is growing in again. Grace clasped a hand over her mouth and ran out of the restaurant. Mr. Hu headed for the kitchen. Your trouble comes from years of wearing the wrong kind of shoes, Jake lectured. Crow wasn't listening. James Shin-Hu, the bomber, was coming back. He had something in his hand. Here, Crow, try these. I invented them myself. Paper inner soles. They'll make you feel like you're floating on air. It's tough standing on your feet all day. Here, take them. Crow examined the 2 pads of spongy, folded paper. How much? Nothing. Compliments of the house. Still suspicious, Crow slipped the inner soles into her shoes and tried walking. What a blessed relief. Otis Amber was wrong. James Shin-Hu was a charitable man, and he couldn't be the bomber. Crow floated out of the restaurant without paying for her lunch. Oh no, not another victim, Sidel Pulaski cried, stuffing her notes under the mattress. The nurse wheeled Chris next to Angela's bed and explained that the boy was being tested for a new medication. Are you all right? She asked, bending over the squirming patient. Chris was trying to remove a blank sealed envelope from his bathrobe pocket. He knew his brother had a crush on Angela. He figured Theo must have sneaked upstairs in the wrong bathrobe to slip this letter under Angela's door, then remembered she was in the hospital and was too shy to give it to her in person. Look at that smile, Sidel exclaimed. From Theo, he said. Chris hoped to watch Angela read the letter, but the nurse insisted that he return to his room. Bye-bye. Good luck, Sidel called. Angela waved a bandaged hand. Mamau to 10, Chris replied. From Turtle. Serves her right for kicking his partner. Mountain, Angela thought. Turtle's MT stood for mountain, not empty. And the letter was not from Theo. Your love has 2. Here are 2 for you. Take her away from the sin and hate, now, before it is too late. Again, 2 clues were taped at the bottom. With and majesties. Crow and Otis Amber's clues are not king and queen, she told Sidel. They are with thy beautiful majesties. Sandy and the judge were still at work on the heirs. Jake Wexler, age 45, podiatrist, graduated from Marquette, married 22 years, has 2 daughters. See below. Grace Windsor Wexler, born Gracie Winkloppel, age 42, married to above. Claims to be an interior decorator, spends most of her time in the Chinese restaurant or the beauty parlor. She and Jake, see above, have 2 daughters, see below. Angela Wexler, age 20, engaged to marry D. Denton Deere, also an heir. 1-year college, high grades, victim of 3rd bombing, embroiders a lot. Turtle Wexler, real name Tabitha Ruth Wexler, age 13, junior high school student, plays the stock market, smart kid but kicks people. Flora Bombach calls her Alice, Westing connection. Grace Windsor Wexler claims that Sam Westing is her real uncle. Angela looks like Violet Westing, so does Grace in a way, except she's older. Sandy fidgeted with his pen. There's something I didn't write down. Maybe I shouldn't tell you, you being a judge and all, but, well, Jake Wexler, he's a bookie. No, he should not have told her. A small-time operator, I'm sure, Mr. McSuthers, the judge replied coldly. I can have no bearing on the matter before us. Sam Westing manipulated people, cheated workers, bribed officials, stole ideas, but Sam Westing never smoked or drank or placed a bet. Give me a bookie any day over such a fine, upstanding, clean-living man. The doorman's face reddened. He pulled the dented flask from his hip pocket and downed several swigs. She had been too harsh. Would you like me to fix you a drink, Mr. McSuthers? No thanks, Judge. I prefer my good old scotch. Windclopple! The judge's outburst was so unexpected, Sandy had a hard time keeping down the last swig. Grace Wexler's maiden name is not Windsor, it's Windclopple, the judge exclaimed, rifling through the pages of Sandy's notebook. Here it is. Bertha Erica Crow. Ex-husband's name, Windy Windclopple. Sandy stopped coughing, started laughing. Grace Windsor Wexler is related to somebody, all right. She's related to the cleaning woman. Think she knows, Judge? I doubt it. Besides, we cannot be certain of the relationship. I'd like to see the documents in Crow's folder again. I'm sure it's Windclopple, Judge. I checked all my spellings 3 times over. Judge Ford reread the private investigator's report. Mr. McSuthers, it is Windclopple, but look carefully at the name of the woman in this interview. Bertha Erica Crow? Sure, I knew her. She and her pa lived in the upstairs flat. We were best friends, almost like sisters, but she was the pretty one with her beautiful complexion and long gold-red hair. She left school to marry a guy named Windclopple. Haven't seen her or heard from her since. She's not in any trouble, is she? Transcript from a taped interview with Sybil Pulaski, November 12th. Pulaski, the doorman said. Not just Pulaski, the judge pointed out. Sybil Pulaski. Sam Westing wanted Crow's childhood friend, Sybil Pulaski, to be one of the heirs. He got Sidel Pulaski instead. Gee, Judge, I never noticed that. Boy, am I dumb. But what does it mean? What it means, Mr. McSuthers, is that Sam Westing made his first mistake. Chapter 20. Confessions. Friday came quickly to the Westing heirs. Too quickly. Time was running out. Turtle skipped school. She was in trouble enough, but she could build her own school, hire her own kind of teachers once she became a millionaire. In spite of having Turtle at her side, Flora Baumbach still stared at the ever-changing, endless tape from the edge of the chair, chewed what remained of her fingernails, and uttered an "Oh my!" each time WPP went by. At 2 o'clock, Westing Paper Products sold at $52 a share, its highest price in 15 years. Now, Baba, sell! Doug Hu had a legitimate excuse from classes. Tomorrow was the big track meet. He jogged, he sprinted, he ran at full speed. Not on the track, but on the trail of Otis Amber. Back and forth from the shopping center to Sunset Towers again and again and again and again and... Hey, this is a new direction. Otis Amber parked his delivery bike in front of the rooming house and went inside. Doug waited, hidden in a doorway across the street, and waited. People came and went, but no Otis Amber. Doug jogged up and down the block for 2 hours. Still no sign of Otis Amber. Doug was cold and hungry, but at least his feet didn't hurt anymore. Last night, when he asked Doc Wexler about the blisters, the podiatrist told him to see his father. His father, of all people. But those paper innersoles really worked. At 5 o'clock, Otis Amber skipped out of the rooming house, hopped on his bicycle, and returned to Sunset Towers empty-handed. Doug's assignment was over. Well, almost over. Where was Theo? Theo was being patched up in the hospital emergency room after a slight miscalculation in his solution experiment. Fortunately, no one else was around when the lab blew up. You like playing with explosives, kid? The bomb squad detective asked. Accidents in high school chemistry were not unusual, but this student lived in Sunset Towers. I was experimenting on chemical fertilizers, Theo replied, wincing as the doctor probed his shoulder for a glass shard. The first bomb went off in your folks' coffee shop, right? Your mother and father work you pretty hard, don't they? They work harder than I do. Why all the questions? Your captain said Sunset Towers explosions were just fireworks. Sure they were, but the bombers have a funny habit of going in for bigger and bigger bangs until they get caught. Theo had an alibi. He was nowhere near the Wexler apartment the day the third bomb went off. The detective grunted a warning about careless chemistry, and Theo had already learned his lesson. Ouch! At last, the coffee shop owner himself delivered the up order. The judge came right to the point. Mr. Theodorakis, tell me about your relationship with Violet Westing. I have reason to believe a life is in danger, or I would not ask. It was a question he had expected. I grew up in Westingtown where my father was a factory foreman. Violet Westing and I were what you call childhood sweethearts. We planned to get married someday when I could afford it, but her mother broke us up. She wanted Violet to marry somebody important. The judge had to interrupt. Her mother? Are you saying it was Mrs. Westing who arranged the marriage, not Sam Westing? George Theodorakis nodded. That's right. Sam Westing tried to involve Violet in his business. I guess he'd hoped she'd take over the paper company one day, but she had her heart set on being a teacher. Besides, Violet didn't have much of a business sense. After that, her father never paid her much attention. Go on. The judge held the witness in her stare. Oh, the subject was becoming painful, and Mr. Theodorakis faltered several times in the telling. Mrs. Westing handpicked that politician. Probably figured the guy would end up in the White House and her daughter would be First Lady. But Violet thought he was nothing but a cheap political hack, a cheap crook. Violet was a gentle person, an only child. She couldn't turn against her mother. She couldn't face marrying that guy. I guess she couldn't find a way out except... Mrs. Westing sort of went off her rocker after Violet's death, and well, it was a long time ago. Thank you, Mr. Theodorakis, the judge said, ending the interrogation. The man had a different life now, different loves, different problems. Thank you. You have been a big help. Sandy was now able to complete the entry. Theodorakis. Theo Theodorakis, age 17, high school senior, works in family coffee shop, wants to be a writer, seems lonely, can't find anyone to play chess with. Christos Theodorakis, age 15, younger brother of above, confined to wheelchair, disease struck about 4 years ago, knows a lot about birds. Westing connection. Father was childhood sweetheart of Sam Westing's daughter, who looked like Angela Wexler. Mrs. Westing broke up the affair. She wanted daughter to marry somebody else, but Violet Westing killed herself before the wedding. Neither parents of above are heirs. I hear the new medicine they're trying out on Chris is doing some good, Sandy reported. But the poor kid needs more help than medicine. He's real smart, you know. Chris could have a real future, be a scientist or a professor, even. But it will take a pile of money, more money than his folks could ever make to put him through college with a handicap like that. The parents interest me more, the judge said. Why are they not heirs? Sandy had some thought on that too. Maybe Sam Westing didn't want to embarrass George Theodorakis, him being married and all. Or maybe Westing figured he'd be too busy with his coffee shop to stay in the game. Or maybe Westing blamed him for his daughter's death, figuring that they should have eloped. No, if Sam Westing blamed Mr. Theodorakis, he would have made him an heir in this miserable game, the judge replied. There are too many maybes here, which is what Sam Westing planned. We must not allow ourselves to be distracted from the real issue. Which heir did Sam Westing want punished? The person who hurt him the most, Sandy guessed? And who would that be? The person who caused his daughter's death? Exactly, Mr. McSuthers. Sam Westing plotted against the person he held responsible for his daughter's suicide, the person who forced Violet Westing to marry a man she loathed. Mrs. Westing? But that's not possible, Judge. Mrs. Westing is not one of the heirs. I think she is, Mr. McSuthers. The former wife of Sam Westing must be one of the heirs. Mrs. Westing is the answer, and whoever she is the one we have to protect. Chapter 21. The Fourth Bomb. The door to apartment 2C opened. Flora Baumbach screamed, and Turtle flung herself on the pile of money that they had been counting. It was Theo, not the thief. Can I borrow your bike for a few hours? It's very important. Theo was not a runner like Doug, who was fuming about his being so late. He needed the bicycle to follow Otis Amber right now. Turtle stared at him in stony silence. I didn't make that sign in the elevator. Besides, you already kicked me for it. Please, Turtle? She still wouldn't answer, punk kid. I had a long talk with the police today, but I refused to tell them who the bomber was. What's that supposed to mean? What does she think it means? It means that he and everybody else knows that Turtle is the bomber. Never mind. Can I have your bike or not? Why do you want it? Theo ground his teeth. Take it easy. Anger won't help any more than blackmail did. Try being a good guy. Saw Angela in the hospital today. She sends her regards. What's that supposed to mean? You let me have that bike, Turtle Wexler, or else. Turtle did not have to ask what or else meant. Police, bomber, Angela. But how did Theo find out? Here, she threw the padlock key across the room and waited for him to rush out before she let go of the money. "He's such a nice boy," Flora Bombach remarked. "Sure," Turtle replied, dialing the telephone number of the hospital. "Angela Wexler, room 325. "Room 325 is not accepting any calls." Turtle hung up the phone. If Theo knew, others knew. Angela had set off those fireworks wanting to get caught, but it was different now. Now she was confused. Now she was just plain scared. They could force a confession out of her in no time. The guilt was right there staring out of those big blue eyes. Maybe they're questioning her now. "Baba, I'm not feeling so good. I think I'll go home to bed." Weaving through rush hour traffic on Turtle's bike, Theo trailed the bus to a steamy downtown district across the railroad tracks where Crow and Otis got off. Skid Row. The pair wandered through the dimly lit, littered and stinking street, bending over grimy bums asleep in the doorways, raising them to their uneasy feet. The pair wandered through the dimly lit, littered, stinking street, raising them to their unsteady feet and leading the ragtag procession into a decaying storefront. Paint was peeling off the letters on the windows. Good Salvation Soup Kitchen. A drunken wreck of a man lurched into Theo, who put a quarter into the filthy outstretched hand, more out of fright than charity. Snatches of hymn singing drifted toward him as the last of the stragglers staggered through the door. Theo crossed the narrow street, pressed his nose against the steamy soup kitchen window. Rows of wretched souls sat hunched on wooden benches. Crow stood before them in her neat black dress, her hands raised toward the crumbling ceiling. Behind her, Otis Amber stirred a boiling mess in a big iron pot. Theo pedaled back to Sunset Towers at a furious pace. Whatever brought Crow and Otis Amber to these lower depths was none of his business. He hated himself for spying. He hated Sam Westing and his dirty money and his dirty game. Theo felt as dirty as the derelicts he spied on. Dirtier. The judge thought that they had finished with the heirs. "Not quite," the doorman said. "McSuthers. Alexander McSuthers, called Sandy, age 65, born Edinburgh, Scotland, immigrated to Wisconsin, age 3, education, 8th grade, jobs, mill worker, union organizer, prize fighter, doorman, married, 6 children, 2 grandchildren. Westing connection, worked in Sam Westing paper plant 20 years, fired by Sam Westing himself for trying to organize the workers, no pension." Sandy turned to a blank page and pushed his tape glasses up the broken bridge of his nose and looked at the judge. "Name?" It had not seemed sporting to investigate one's own partner, but Mr. McSuthers was right. This was a Westing game. Of course, she had kept some facts about him from the other heirs, but only because she did not trust his blabbering. Josie Joe Ford, with a hyphen between Josie and Joe. Age, 42. Education, Columbia. Law degree, Harvard. The judge waited for the doorman to enter the information in his slow, cramped lettering. He had to be meticulous in order to prove he was better than his 8th grade education. It's a pity he had not gone further. He was quite a clever man. Jobs, assistant district attorney, judge. Family court, state supreme court, appellate division. Appellate has 2 P's and 2 L's. Never married, no children. Westing connection? The judge paused, then spoke so rapidly Sandy had to stop taking notes. "My mother was a servant in the Westing household. My father worked for the railroad and was a gardener on his days off." "You mean you lived in the Westing house?" Sandy asked with obvious surprise. "You knew the Westings?" "I barely saw Mrs. Westing. Violet was a few years younger than I, doll-like and delicate. She was not allowed to play with other children, especially the skinny, long-legged black daughter of the servants." "Gee, you must have been lonely, Judge, having nobody to play with." "I played with Sam Westing. Chess. Hour after hour, I sat staring down at the chessboard. He lectured me, he insulted me, he won every game." The judge thought of their last game. She had been so excited about taking his queen not only to have the master checkmate her in the next move, Sam Westing had deliberately sacrificed his queen, and she had fallen for it. "Stupid child, you can't have a brain that frizzy-headed to make a move like that." Those were the last words he had ever said to her. The judge continued. "I was sent to boarding school when I was 12. My parents visited me at school when they could, but I never set foot in the Westinghouse again. Not until 2 weeks ago. Your folks must have worked really hard, Sandy said. An education like that costs a fortune. Sam Westing paid for my education. He saw that I was accepted into the best schools, probably arranged for my first job, perhaps more. I don't know. That's the first decent thing I've heard about the old man. Hardly decent, Mr. McSuthers. It was to Sam Westing's advantage to have a judge in his debt. Needless to say, I have excused myself from every case remotely connecting to Westing affairs. You're awfully hard on yourself, Judge. And on him. Maybe Westing paid for your education because you were smart and needy, and you did all the rest by yourself. This is getting us nowhere, Mr. McSuthers. Just right. Westing connection, education financed by Sam Westing, debt never repaid. Theo, upset over his Skid Row snooping, took out his anger on the up button, poking it, jabbing it, until the elevator finally made its way up to the lobby. Slowly the door slid open. He stared down at the sparking, sputtering arsenal, yelled, and belly flopped to the carpet as rockets whizzed out of the elevator inches above his head. Boom! Boom! A blinding flash of white fire streaked through the lobby, through the open entrance door, and burst into a chrysanthemum of color in the night sky. Then the elevator door closed. The bomber had made one mistake. The last rocket blasted off when the elevator returned to the 3rd floor. Boom! By the time the bomb squad reached the scene by way of the stairs, the smoke had cleared, but the young girl was still huddled on the hallway floor, tears streaming down her turtle-like face. For heaven's sake, say something, her mother said. Tell me where it hurts. The pain was too great to be put into words. 5 inches of Turtle's braid were badly singed. Grace Wexler attacked the policeman. Nothing but a childish prank, you said. Some childish prank. Both my children cruelly injured, almost killed. Maybe now you'll do something. Now that it's too late. Unshaken by the mother's anger, the policeman held up a sign that had been taped to the elevator wall. The bomber strikes again. On the reverse side was a handwritten composition, How I Spent My Summer Vacation, by Turtle Wexler. Grace grabbed the theme and shook it at her daughter, who was being rocked in Flora Baumbach's arms. Somebody stole this from you, didn't they, Turtle? You couldn't have done such an awful thing, not to Angela, not to your own sister. Could you, Turtle? Could you? I want to see a lawyer, Turtle replied. The bomb squad, faced with 6 hours overtime, filling out forms and delivering the delinquent to a juvenile detention facility, decided it was best for all concerned to escort the prisoner to apartment 4D and place her in the custody of Judge Ford. Judge Ford put on her black robe and seated herself behind the desk. Before her stood a downcast child looking very sad and very sorry. Not at all like the turtle she knew. You surprise me, Turtle Wexler. I thought you were too smart to commit such a dangerous, destructive, and stupid act. Yes, ma'am. Why did you do it, Turtle? To hurt someone? To get even with someone? No, ma'am. Of course not. Turtle kicked Shin. She was not the type to bottle up her anger. You do understand that a child would not receive as harsh of a penalty as an adult would? That there would be no permanent criminal record? Yes, ma'am. I mean, no, ma'am. She was protecting someone. She had set off the fireworks in the elevator to divert suspicion from the real bomber. But who was the real bomber? Nothing to do but drag it out of her, name by name, starting with the least likely. Are you protecting Angela? No! The judge was astounded by the excited response. Angela could not be the bomber. Not that sweet, pretty thing. Thing? Is that how she regarded that young woman? As a thing? And what had she ever said to her except, I hear you're getting married, Angela, or how pretty you look, Angela? Had anyone asked her about her ideas, her hopes, her plans? If I had been treated like that, I'd have used dynamite, not fireworks. No, I would have just walked out and kept right on going. But Angela was different. What a senseless thing to do, the judge said aloud. Yes, ma'am. Turtle stared down at the carpet, wondering if she had given Angela away. Judge Ford rose and placed an arm around Turtle's bony shoulders. She had never wished for a sister until this moment. Turtle, will you give me your word that you will never play with fireworks again? Yes, ma'am. While we're at it, do you have anything else to confess? Yes, ma'am. I was in the Westing house the night Mr. Westing died. Good Lord, child, sit down and tell me. Turtle began with the purple wave story, went on to the whisperings, the bedded down corpse, the dropped peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, her mother's cross, and ended with the $24 she had won. Did either you or Doug Who call the police? No, ma'am, we were too scared. We just ran. Is that a crime? The judge said it was a criminal offense to conceal a murder. But Mr. Westing didn't look murdered, Turtle argued. He looked asleep, like he did in his coffin. He looked like a wax dummy. A wax dummy? Now Turtle was the one surprised by the excited response. The judge thinks it might have been a real wax dummy, not a corpse at all. Then what happened to Sam Westing? The judge regained her composure. Not reporting a dead body is a violation of the health code, but I wouldn't worry about it. Is there anything else, Turtle? Yes, ma'am, Turtle replied, glancing at the portable bar. Can I have a little bourbon? What? Just a little. On a piece of cotton to put on my cavity, my tooth hurts something awful. Relieved at not having a juvenile alcoholic on her hands, Judge Ford prepared the home remedy. Is that better? Good. You may go home now. Home meant going to Baba. Baba loved her no matter what, and Turtle didn't care if the others thought she was the bomber, except Sandy. He was walking toward her right now, walking his bouncy walk, but not smiling. Sandy's disappointed in her. He thinks she hurt her own sister. He doesn't want to be friends anymore. How's my girl? Sandy said, cupping his hand under her chin and lifting her head. Whoo! Hitting the bottle again? It's just bourbon on cotton for my toothache. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Honest, Sandy. Turtle was pointing inside her wide-open mouth. The doorman peered in. Wow, that's some cavity. Looks like the Grand Canyon. Tomorrow morning you're going to go see my dentist. No back talk. He's very gentle. You won't feel a thing. Promise you'll go? Turtle nodded. Sandy smiled. Good. Then down to business. My wife's having a birthday tomorrow. I thought one of your gorgeous striped candles would make a swell present. There's only one candle left, Turtle replied. It's the best of the lot. 6 super colors. I spent a lot of time making it, and that's why I wouldn't part with it. But since it's for your wife's birthday, Sandy, I'll let you have it for only $5, and I won't charge a sales tax. Try not to stick your fanny out so far, Angela said from her chair. Now that Sidel Pulaski depended on crutches, she lurched clumsily, hobbled by old habits. Just keep reading those clues, the secretary straightened, shoulders back, stomach in, until her next step. With their telephone switched off and contagious disease added to the no visitors sign, the bomb victims had privacy at last. Sidel had twice read the entire will aloud. Now Angela, her hands unbandaged, was reshuffling the collected clues. Grains, spacious, grace, good, hood, with beautiful majesties, from thy purple waves on, or no, mountain. Again, Sidel ordered, change them around and read either the word on or no. Both together are confusing. Good, spacious grains with grace on thy purple mountain, hood waves from majesty's beautiful. Shh! Someone was at the door. Angela picked up the note that was slipped underneath. My darling Angela, I guess the sign on the doors means I should stay away too. I understand. We both need time to think things over. I'll wait. I love you. Denton. What does it say? What does it say? Sidel pressed, but Angela only read the postscript aloud. P.S. You have another admirer. Chris wants to give you and Mrs. Pulaski one of our clues. Flora Bumbach has seen it too. The word is plane. Like an airplane? Sidel asked. No, plain, like ordinary. Like wide open plains. Plain, plains, grains. Quick, Angela, read the clues again. Good hood from spacious plain grains on with beautiful waves grace thy purple mountain majesties. That's it, Angela. We got it. Sidel could barely control her excitement. The will said, sing in praise of this generous land. And the will said, may God thy gold refine. America, Angela, America. Purple mountain majesties, Angela. Whoopee! Fortunately, Sidel Pulaski was close to the bed when she threw her crutches in the air. Alright, we're starting to get to the end, so I hope you guys continue to keep watching, and we'll be done with this sooner than you think. Are you guys excited to hear the answer in the end of the story? Because let me tell you, there's a twist. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!